So let's talk about the midterms. Nice segue there. So we had some very interesting results this week in the primaries and also very interesting results in terms of this New York special election that we have been looking forward to for quite a while now, because this district in upstate New York is as sort of evenly divided and swingy of a district as it possibly could be. This is a district that went by 1.5 points to Biden. It's been represented by Democrats. It's been represented by Republicans. Upstate New York is also one of the areas where Democrats were getting shellacked as canary in the coal mine for previous midterm disasters. So everybody's watching this really closely. And you had two candidates who were both pretty strong, both established politicians in the area that represented significant parts of the district. And the Republican in particular, Mark Molinaro, was seen as a very good candidate. He's more of a moderate Republican. He's tried to sort of like have a moderate stance on abortion and other issues. He represents and has for a long time one of the more significant areas in the district. So it was expected, and he did. He would outperform in that county. But ultimately, the Democrat really defied the polling here and ended up pulling off a clear victory. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen. Pat Ryan, this Business Insider piece says he rode a wave of fire, anger, and indignation over abortion and guns to secure a major special election victory for Democrats in New York. When I checked the margin last night, it was right around 2 points that Pat Ryan had won by. They're still counting some of the late absentee ballots, but it looks like he outperformed by a little bit how Biden did in the district, which is, quite encouraging for Democrats. So let's put this next piece up on the screen in terms of kind of putting the pieces together of all of these recent special elections. This is from Dave Wasserman. So in every single post-Dobbs special election, so not primary, special elections, the Democrats have overperformed and the Republicans have underperformed. The trend is also very similar across these districts in terms of the more liberal parts of the districts are just really showing up in droves, sort of like white college-educated voters, very animated, very much showing up to vote in ways that oftentimes, and this is also interesting, the polls are not predicting. So again, in this district, you had polls up to Election Day that had the Republican up by as much as 8 points. And so, the fact that Democrats are outperforming the polls is also unusual. Usually it's the Republicans that do that. So Saagar, it is seen as like a very interesting indicator of where things are.
Yeah, you sent a piece this morning from the New York Times. We don't have it made because it literally just came out this morning, but it's very interesting. So on average, Republicans carried the 4 completed districts by 3.7 percentage points, compared with Trump's 7.7 edge in the same districts. The results are not just worse, they're actually straightforwardly poor. Republicans need to fare better than Donald Trump, who lost the national vote by 4.5 points, to retake the House. So they're underperforming by 3. They actually need to overperform significantly. They need to overperform to retake the House, let alone contemplate winning the Senate. So look, it's still a couple months to Election Day. We don't know. I think we could say definitively at this time that Democratic enthusiasm is much higher than it was in the past.
Yeah.
And also, I think that it does seem that there is a very activated constituency which showed up big time in 2018 and in 2020. Let's put this up there on the screen, which is that Florida turnout was actually higher last night in the Democratic primary than in the blue wave of 2018. You had 1.5 million votes in the 2022 primary compared to 1.52 versus 1.51. So the fact that it even comes close to what we know was a major Dem wave in 2018 in terms of turnout, right? That means that this is significant. We should also say, though, what else happened in 2018? Well, Marsha Blackburn and a bunch of Republicans also did win their Senate seat. So it's not like it was a massive, it's not the massive wave that people made it, and Republicans did still keep control of the Senate. So it's still possible. One of the interesting things in blue states was that it was like purple areas went more blue, but red states became more red.
Yes.
So it's possible that this could actually flip things a little bit more in that way. I know that doesn't necessarily make sense, but if you think about it, it kind of does.
And that's what they're seeing in these districts is in the rural areas, the Republicans are outperforming the Trump margins. But turnout is lower.
Right.
And it's in those more liberal parts of the district where people are showing up in droves and handing these large margins to Democrats. So look, I mean, and that is we'll get to this, that is sort of what the Republicans are banking on is maybe these special elections aren't representative of what the electorate will look like in November. But I saw Josh Barro in his Substack was making an interesting point that it's not just that Democrats are super motivated by Dobbs and abortion. It's also that some of the new Republican coalition is kind of turned off by the GOP extremism. This isn't the issue that they signed up to be a part of in the Republican Party. Donald Trump, even though, he's the person who put these people on the court that effectuated this outcome, he really downplayed the more sort of religiosity component in his campaign in 2016 and attracted people into the coalition who maybe previously had been turned off by this, hardcore evangelical messaging. And so now that that's back at the center of the party, you have some Republicans who are like, I'm not feeling these people as much as I was maybe like 6 months ago.
Some of us may have said that, and we're laughed out of the room.
Some of us have been, you've been making that point for a minute now.
Maybe 4 years, whatever. It's okay. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen, which only highlights this point even more, which is that new Pew Research polling actually shows the economy remains the top midterm issue, but shows that abortion has ranked from 43% in March to 56% in August in terms of salience. So top salience, August, 77% economy, 62% guns, 60% violent crime, 56% abortion. More so even than energy policy. Personally, I think that's kind of crazy. But listen, voters are who they are. So to have a 13% jump and to have that also come at the very same time of overperformance, that's obviously going to have a major impact at the ballot box. And this always comes to the more maddening parts of midterms. Midterms, yes, are a referendum on the national mood and all of that. But in general, it really is like whose base is more going to turn out. A lot of people don't vote in the midterms. That's true. What is the midterm performance? Maybe like on a bad year, 50%. On a good year, like 75%. But it never even comes close.
I don't even think it's
to president. It might not even be.
Yeah, I think 50% is more like in the good.
Right. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So a lot of people just don't vote. Most of them are old. So if you can get people who are younger, people who are more like fence-sitting type liberals and fence-sitting Republicans to not go, fence-sitting liberals to go, then you can actually significantly change the results. It really is all a function of, do I care enough in order to go and do something?
And to circle back to our student loan conversation, that's part of why I think this will be good for Democrats, because one of the most demotivated parts of the base, and also one of the parts of the base that's the hardest to turn out, is young people who will disproportionately benefit from this and are overwhelmingly supportive of the move. So that's part of why I feel like in midterms, when it's a turnout game, when it's just about like firing up your people, it probably will be a benefit to them, but ultimately we'll see. Now, the flip side here and the cautionary note, which I mentioned before, this is from Dave Wasserman, let's put this up on the screen. Democrat successes in these specials have been fueled by high engagement in college-heavy enclaves like Lincoln, Nebraska, Rochester, Minnesota, Ulster County, New York, and Ithaca, New York. Pockets not all that representative of the larger fall electorate. So that's what Republicans are kind of hanging on to at this point, that, these special elections, they're not really representative. You're going to have, and it is true, in a special election, you're going to get even smaller turnout than you ultimately will in the midterm elections. So we're going to have more of our people show up, and it's going to be a different landscape. They're holding on to that, and they're holding on to, the macro metrics, the fact that, and these are, these are hard trends to overcome. The fact that you have an unpopular president, and it basically has never happened before that you have a president. In fact, I think it literally has never happened before that you have a president who's mired at 40% approval rating and their party picks up.
That has.
It's literally never happened before.
Correct.
So it's not like that's a small thing to take a look at. Is it enough, the Dobbs decision and these other factors to sort of overcome the long thrust of history? Hard to say. And then, of course, you continue to look at the economic numbers, the fact that, so many people feel we're in a recession. So many people say inflation is their number one issue and they trust Republicans more on the issue. The fact that you have 74% of the country saying that we're on the wrong track. Normally, you would look at those metrics and say, it's a wrap. Like, there's nothing Democrats could do. And yet it seems like in poll after poll, the generic ballot now tied with Democrats actually having a tiny bit of an edge in terms of the generic ballot, in terms of these special elections, in terms of abortion shooting up as an issue. You have these indicators that it is going to be a much more closely fought battle than it looked like it was going to be pre-Dobbs. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.